else to be very excited about is Sir Keir Starmer's visit to China, because, get this, Brits get visa-free travel under a major Keir Starmer deal. What, we get to go over to China, not have to fill out a visa form, but they will make you fill out a lot of other forms, probably get spied on, end up on some sort of database, compromat will be stored on us, and yay, that's fun, isn't it? Seriously? Let's have a little look at Sir Keir Starmer in action in Beijing.
We had a very good, productive session with real concrete outcomes, and it was a real strengthening of the relationship, and that's in the national interest because, of course, there are huge opportunities here in China. It's the second biggest economy in the world, and that's why we've got such a big business delegation. A lot of the discussion was about how we open up access for those opportunities, focusing, as I always do, on how is this going to be delivered back in the United Kingdom, how does it benefit people back at home. And we made some really good progress on tariffs for whisky, on visa-free travel to China, and on information exchange and cooperation on irregular migration, focusing particularly on small boats and engine parts.
Oh, he's taken them bins off, hasn't he? Where's his glasses gone? Is he trying to, like, blend in a little bit more? Lord Ali didn't go with him with the wardrobe selection. Oh, no, he's probably going to be getting it from Shane now, isn't he? Shein, whatever it's called. But let's rejoin Philip Kiszely and discuss this. Philip, I don't know where to begin with this. Look, I think the way I see it is we haven't really got a choice much when it comes to China now, because blimmin' Osborne and Cameron let them so far into the UK. They're deeply entangled in most of our critical infrastructure, whether it be our electricity, our water, nuclear power stations, phone networks. They're everywhere. They own loads of our debt. They own loads of our real estate. If we upset them, then unfortunately they can press a few buttons and make our lives very difficult indeed. And I hate the fact that we're in that situation. But he's gone out there to apparently make it 1,000 times worse. And what I cannot wrap my head around is he knows, because he's not a fool. At least I don't think he is. I think he's quite willful and evil most of the time. He knows that China is the main supplier of materials to Russia in order that they create all of these arms that they're currently using against Ukraine. He knows that they do the same with Iran, providing all the bits and pieces for their missiles and their drones, even their satellite systems, so they can geolocate their targets. He knows the amount of spying that China does. We've only just had that case recently where he wouldn't say that China was a national security threat. And so the two Chinese spies got off. He knows because the intelligence agencies gave them warnings about this Chinese mega embassy. He knows all of this. So why is he doing this? Is he just basically... I mean, I actually genuinely wonder whether on some level the Labour Party and members of the Labour Party are under the command of these people. When I look at the flogging of the Chagos Islands and the digger you deep into that, and what old Philip Sands and Herma were up to and their connections, the more you just think, blimmin' heck, this is, you know, this is far more grave than I even realised at surface level.
Yeah, I think so. I look at this and I think about our Labour Party and I think about the Chinese Communist Party, and always in my mind I go right back to the Cold War and think about the Labour Party and the Russians. You know, there's a similar correlation there. But I mean, I look at the images of Starmer there in China, and they fill me with alarm. I think, my God, what's he doing? You know, it's almost like idiot dad going away and giving away the deeds to the house, isn't it? You know, and then he comes back and presto, we're left with nothing. It's interesting the tone he's adopting there, isn't it? It's almost, you know, he's almost adopting one of those. He's taking on the Chinese Communist Party mannerisms, and I'm absolutely certain. Well, mainly because we're so reduced in the world now. We have so little power, mainly thanks to him and the previous government, that you know, he's just a pawn. He's just a puppet in their hands. And I can't imagine him talking about, you know, this is the Labour Party. This is, you know, they're supposed to be so ethical and they're supposed to care so much about Muslims and stuff like that. As far as I'm where, Alex, there are, what, 1.2 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in China at the moment, 500,000 of them, as I'm aware, picking cotton in fields as slaves. What's going on there? Is he going to
Right.
mention all of that
And
kind of...
it's not even just the Uyghur Muslims, it's sort of workers' camps up and down the country. Most of the tat we buy from China is probably being created under unethical circumstances. I remember reading the other day about those really grotesque-looking doll things called like Wabubu or Yabu, I don't know what they're called. So those things, there's an article that they're being made in some sort of horrible factory where people have to poo in buckets and eat it or something. It was just absolutely vile to read. But you say that we're diminished on the world stage. I would argue, actually, that we're not. In many respects, except we act like we are. And China's getting more out of this than we're going to. When Rachel Reeves bounced over there at the start of the Premiership and said, I've done a brilliant deal with China, I've taken over the heads of X, Y and Z, and came back with like contracts worth 500 million quid, which in sort of UK GDP terms is a coin down the back of the sofa, if that. It's probably a chewed up piece of chewing gum from 1986 that somehow stuck itself to the bottom of the city. The thing that China needs, that it's always needed, it's got the manpower because it abuses its staff to churn out a lot at a really fast rate. It controls access to 90% of the discovered rare earth minerals. You know, it's got the materials, it's got the manpower, and so it can undercut anyone anywhere. When I was living over in Ghana, they were even undercutting the Ghanaians at making printed African fabrics. They were nicking the designs, getting them printed in China and flooding the Ghanaian markets with them. So that's how low they can go. But what they need is intelligence. They need know-how, which is why they send so many people to our universities. We make about 1/3 of the world's top 100 universities because we actually have the ability to develop high-end AI and robotics or whatever it may be. We've got the skills, we've got the intelligence they need. And similarly, the services, financial services in particular, the City of London is still vital internationally to any country who wants to grow its economy. And so when I read this, look, with the UK is the world's second largest exporter of services. And basically, this is what China wants from us. They don't need the materials. They want to sell us whatever they make to undercut all of our manufacturing. They're going to flood our market with whatever goods they can. They're going to copy our intel, nick our ideas, produce them in China, so any UK manufacturer coming up with anything new is soon enough going to be outpriced or underpriced from the market. They're going to spy on us to get whatever they can. They're going to put in all of their products where they come to do our infrastructure, things that could cut it off. They are predatory mercantilists. And Starmer's basically going to them going, oh, hey, look at the dim sum of opportunity I can give you from Great Britain. Which one do you like?
And this is what I'm worried about. But the thing is, I agree with what you're saying, actually, there, Alex. But even when we're on the front foot, we're in the driving seat, and you talked about education. You talked about our universities. That is a classic example. Okay, they need our knowledge. Okay, it is about the knowledge economy, and they need that expertise. But the problem is, we are just taking absolutely everybody, and the whole financial model of our universities now is predicated on having Chinese students coming in and paying tuition fees. If they went tomorrow, which they probably could do in some major areas like the creative industries, for example, if they went tomorrow and stopped coming over here, our universities would collapse.
Right.
So my point is, we take a really good opportunity and then we make ourselves vulnerable. And that is the story of the Labour Party. And to be fair, that was the story of the Conservative Party for the last 10 years as well. That's why people want change. That's why people want us to be able to say, no, actually, let's put our people first. Let's put our own interests first and then look after everybody else second. And let's see how we can work there. But the problem is, what happens is all of this stuff gets tied up with identity politics and nonsense. You know, and again, let's just stick with the education example because it's a good example. Okay, we're an international university. Let's bring everybody in. Let's be international. Actually, you're not being international. You're being Chinese. You're making yourself vulnerable, and there are spies in every single Senate.
Oh, so many. And, you know, this has been going on for decades. It's not just Starmer with the overregulation, the crazy net zero, strangulating any sort of chance of prosperity, the rapid deindustrialisation. I feel at this point, Starmer's just taken the carrion that is the United Kingdom, thrown it in the middle of Tiananmen Square and said, pick over the bones to the Chinese.